Welcome to Distancify Weekly. This is the show where we... Oh, you're gonna be in it too.
Yeah, you forgot me.
Okay. Welcome to Distancify Weekly, the show where we discuss e-commerce and the technology behind it. Today we are talking about animation. Stay tuned. Why do you like animation so much?
So much. I like them because it gives you the opportunity to lead the user in some way. I mean, it's like taking their hand and leading them to where you want them to be. Or, I mean, it's a way to get attention, but it also gives you extra time. So if you want to make a request, if you want to feel responsive, you can. If you don't have the data yet, you can fetch it, and while you wait, you can do the animation if you know where you're going. So you can, you can get extra time.
So it's sort of like a magic trick where you direct the user's attention elsewhere while you're doing
or to
the shady stuff
where they should be
shadow.
when I'm done.
Okay, so what about the effect that you can have if you... Don't do that. It's really hard to get rid of. What about the effect where can you go too far? Can you add too much animations?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I think if you become too animation happy, you can get there pretty early, I think.
Yeah.
If you just start playing around with it. If you animate to get wow effect, then I think you might be out on deep water.
Doesn't it seem like most websites or a lot of websites are going like there's this new trend of fading in stuff as you scroll, for example. I call them scroll activated animations or transitions. And it's I mean it's been sort of easy to do for a long time, but it was made popular quite recently by Apple has been using it quite extensively when they're marketing the iPhone in their store. But there's a lot of other people who are doing it as well.
But I think Apple, they usually do those on the product pages, but they don't use the scroll as they use the scroll as a product journey more.
Yes,
it's not scrolling anymore. It's,
it's
controlled animations completely.
Yes, but they're using an intuitive controller for it. But here's what I find interesting. That seems to be something that is really easy to overdo because it looks really cool, and therefore people want to do it, but they don't really have any reason for it. So I noticed a very neat thing. Actually, I was watching the iPhone 11 product page, or maybe in the Pro page, whatever. One of them, the iCamera, and they used this animation, and they used it very cleverly to display the difference between the regular lens and the wide angle lens. So as you scroll down, there's a picture, and then as you scroll further, it increases the picture. So it's like a reverse crop of the image, so that it grows and you show the full wide angle image. And that's like explaining to you how much more stuff you can now fit in a photo with that lens, which I think is that's a really good way of explaining the difference of what you used to have and now you have this.
Yeah, the person who did that animation doesn't have to. I mean,
they didn't do the animation for the sake of the animation.
That person did not have a problem explaining why did you do this animation, because they have a very strong why.
Exactly.
And I think that's important when you animate.
Right. Because that's where people seem to get lost. As usual, you forget the why of what you're doing.
Yeah, sometimes it's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's people, some people just like to... but maybe there are people who...
I think templates, or themes. If you go to some place that sells WordPress themes or any other theme land thing, I think it might be easier to sell to the type of customers who come in and buy themes, because they say, "Oh, it looks cool," so they might buy that. I think that's that might be a reason why it ends up in a lot of places where there should be no animations.
Yeah, because I've heard from users that when they see websites do this, when they fade in stuff as you go, they perceive it as the website being slow.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. Like, why an animation without a why? it's just waiting to get to the content that you want.
Yes. Yeah, it feels slower.
Yeah. But isn't there a chance that you talked about transitions before, loading data in the background and stuff? Isn't there it must be a very thin line to walk?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you can do. I mean, sometimes you have parts of the data and you can show that, and you can scroll, and they can start interacting with the data you already have while you fetch the rest of it with maybe a spinner in that place or something. I mean, yeah. Yes, of course. And you will probably feel it if you have a sense for that sort of thing.
Yeah, because it sort of comes back to...
Because maybe sometimes a spinner is the right thing. You shouldn't animate to anything, because that animation they might think, oh, you put that animation here and that makes the site slow, and they become angry on the animation.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I can't stand there by every person's computer or phone and explain to them that there is no data at this moment. So I can't show you, even without the animation.
Right. What about performance overall when it comes to technology of animations?
If you can't do them in 60 frames per second, then I think you shouldn't do them.
Okay. No exception?
That would be very few exceptions, because I think it doesn't feel good. It feels bad. And
right. But what about, like, because of course an animation for the sake of being cool has no things, has really nothing talking for it. Like,
yeah.
And then of course a low frame rate would only be speaking against having the animation.
Yeah, then it doesn't even look cool anymore.
Exactly, it takes the coolness out of it. But what about if you have an animation for a very specific reason?
Yeah, I would like to change my answer. I think it's fine to go below 60, but you should do everything in your power to keep the 60 frames. You can even cheat in the animations.
Okay.
Maybe try to switch what you animate and how you animate.
Can you do like adaptive animations? Technically, can you realize, oh, this is a slow device, I'm gonna tune it down a little bit?
I don't know.
Or do you have to sort of optimize for the lowest or the slowest device that you imagine?
That's what I would do.
Yeah. So there's no like responsiveness in that sense.
I mean, I guess you can measure it, but it's like,
yeah, I'm just curious.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
Yep. But on the other hand, that'd be quite a lot to maintain.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if you can get those metrics out of the old browsers.
Yeah. And even game developers are not able to do it properly, so maybe it's a little bit...
Yeah, I mean, that's why we drop frames.
Exactly.
So we can get there
in
time.
But, you know, it's like the only setting that you've always wanted in a game is the one that says you run this at the best of my computer's ability.
Yeah, without dropping frames.
Exactly. And like, nobody solved that problem yet.
No, you get a lot of settings that you have to set manually. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't even know what half of them are.
Yeah. And it's the same application runs on the same computer for a long time, not like websites.
Yeah, exactly. So they should be able to...
I think they measure once and they set it for you.
Yeah. I've seen some games, some platforms trying to do that. But never really.
Yeah, I think they should.
It's like you always get the feeling that it's either you're getting a little lower quality than what you can actually get from your machine, or it's gonna be over and it's dropping frame. It's like, and you still want to go in and tweak it.
Yeah,
because you think the presets are not accurate.
Of course, no one knows as good as you do.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Anyway, yeah. So performance. No. Okay. So we're trying to get to 60 FPS.
Yes.
And but it feels like 55. Is that okay? It's like, when does it really get? Because I feel like
when you drop frames. I mean, you feel it. You can see it. It feels bad.
But can you throttle it to be like 30 FPS?
Throttle it?
Yeah. Like put a maximum on the animation. Like do not go over 30, so that, because maybe we can hit 30 on the device and it's not that important that it's super smooth or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like there used to be games that did that on consoles, like when they were on a PC, for example, you could get 60 FPS, but on an Xbox, on the port to Xbox, you could only get 30 FPS.
That's because the TV is.
I think it was also because that the machine could not handle.
was 30 frames per second.
Yeah, but I'm talking like HDMI.
Okay.
Era.
Modern times.
Yeah, but so I think it wasn't the fact that the screen couldn't handle it, but the machine could not handle 60 FPS. So instead of having it fluctuate between 60 and 30, you just keep it at 30 all the time, and then the user would not notice any dropping frames because it's consistently,
slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen anything like this.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, you can look in the Chrome tools. You can see all your, every frame, how much time it took, and when you go over your time.
Okay.
But I think you should try to keep it that your frame is rendering under, I think it's 16 milliseconds you have total to the paint.
Okay.
But there's a nice course from Google that I think people should watch or go through. It's called 60 frames per second or something like that.
Okay. Anything else that you want to take note of when you're doing animations in the browser?
I do like motion graphics. I haven't done much with them, but
so just to make everybody understand what's the difference between an animation, a regular animation, and use motion graphics, is that an animation is basically a CSS property changing over time, while motion graphics is
it's the image itself transforming. I mean, it's like a real animation.
Yeah.
But where the graphics itself,
so it's a
morphs.
So it's a polygon, a vector of some sort that, and then it sort of
it could be a SVG or it could be a canvas. But that's cool. I mean, when you have a button, you press the button, it goes together and it starts to do some other things.
It transforms into a spinner or something like that.
And it could be very much like your brand.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's very eye-popping.
Yeah, and it doesn't, impact performance really that much. And I think you get a better, if you get it right, the sense. It feels more like quality. That's what
it feels to me, that the main issue with animations, the one thing that you should truly try to avoid when you're moving stuff around on a website is a relayout. Basically an animation that affects other elements on the page.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're pretty safe to do anything. Like on a canvas, which is sort of static in its position, it doesn't really.
You already draw
unless
pictures.
You do a lot of frame by frame calculations.
Yeah, like where they have to composite lots of layers.
Like if you're doing a game like situation where you're taking input from the user and basing that, the animation on that input or something like that. Otherwise, you can sort of
multiple layers. I think is something where you have to recalculate the sum of all of them.
Right.
But I mean, if you
other than that, it's just pixels on the screen.
Yeah, it all comes down to being pixels on the screen. When we work on the web, we create a paragraph, but that's not really a paragraph. That's just how your browser renders text in pixels. So everything becomes pixels in the end.
Right.
But you should remember that. I mean, it's easy to forget.
You cannot say that. This you can't have this many div elements or div tags on your website. It really doesn't work like that. It depends on how they are rendered, right?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, and you shouldn't be afraid of painting pixels, because everything is pixels in the end. There is no native text in the screen. There is only pixels, and Chrome or any other browser, they render out that pixel value.
I want to go back to motion graphics, which you just briefly touched on. How do you create them? Like, do you code them?
No, you should use different tools, I think. I mean,
right.
Maybe some people code them.
Because okay. So everything in the end is JavaScript manipulating a canvas, for example.
Yeah. Or SVG or something.
Yeah. Right.
But it runs in the browser.
Right.
Yeah, because that's also something that you have to think about in the animations, is that if I'm halfway through an animation and I cancel it, I don't want it to skip to the end frame and go back from that place. I want it to go back from the place it were. So it needs to be have knowledge about where it is in its animation. Let's say that we had a GIF.
Yep.
Animate that. And we go from completely transparent to black.
Yep.
And then halfway through, we want to animate the other way around. We can't replace that GIF with a GIF that plays from the beginning, because we are at 50% transparency.
Yeah.
So we need to start from there to animate back. Yeah. And that's something to think about also.
Yeah.
That you control that. But yeah.
Right. So controlling animations can be tricky, especially when you're doing CSS-based animations, keyframe animations. If you're going,
but the CSS one,
actually CSS is pretty good.
Yeah, because it does that natively. You just change the property and it goes the other way.
Yeah, as long as you are going in and out of a specific state, for example, and you're changing, your properties. The same properties goes to one endpoint and then goes back to where they were before. Then it's really neat.
But even if let's say I have a CSS property and I set the transparency opacities to 0, and then I click on it to set it to 1, and then in the middle I click on it again, then it will be at that point where it is and start reversing.
Yeah.
So CSS does that it does that as it should.
Yeah. So what tool would you use? Flash? Adobe Flash?
Yes.
It's not called Adobe Flash anymore, isn't it?
Yeah. I think Flare from 2 Dimensions looks nice.
Yeah.
And also Body Moving is a plugin to After Effects.
Yeah.
Where you can export
but that's Body Moving I looked into it and it seems a bit leaky. It's like there's certain things that is supported and some things that are not.
Yeah, it's I think old because it has been around.
Yeah.
Airbnb made it popular, at least for me, when they made their. I don't remember the name for what their tool was called anymore, but it was for native.
Yeah.
It took the body moving export and made it work on native. So that's where a lot of people got their buttons in iOS and Android to work and all the motion graphics.
Okay, cool.
So
right, but a tool like you said
Flare from 2Dimension.
Right.
They also have a thing for animating graphics. So you just put skeletons on them and then you can animate them.
Okay.
And
cool.
their tools are free, so you can play with them as long as
they're web native, basically.
Yeah.
Anything you can do there translates to the web.
Yeah,
100%.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
I don't want to say. I don't like
Okay.
100%.
No,
I'm more a 99%.
Yeah,
guy.
you're a programmer, so
Yeah.
you take everything literally. All right, cool. So basically, when you're doing animations, make sure you know why you're doing them. Make sure they are fast. Avoid relayouts of the website.
Yeah.
And
So and go through the course. So the Google course.
Go through a course, and because there's a lot of great tools, especially in Chrome, when it comes to rendering.
Yeah, the
actual rendering
Chrome
speed.
will tell you very loudly, if you look in the right place, that you are making a synchronous layout, where you're doing a layout within animation.
Internet Explorer will not tell you that.
No.
Maybe it will actually.
I don't know. I don't talk to Internet Explorer so much lately.
Yeah, and motion graphics. When it comes to motion graphics, you want to make sure that you have natural animations, and I think the masters of this are cartoonists. I think that's where a lot of people, actually, when you're doing any kind of animation, then when you sort of, where people make mistakes. So if especially when you're doing tweening, like you're animating from one value to another, basically. And you have like ease in, ease out, and all these sort of curves that you can apply. But if you take, like, let's say you want to move an arm from this place to over here, right? And you're doing that with a tweening effect. It's gonna look like this. And nobody really moves in a pretty much unless you're a robot, right?
Yes.
So like, we have very our movement is very non-linear. So that's something as well that you need to take.
But usually I don't put that many bodies on my website.
No, but I mean, even if you have a button that morphs into something else, sometimes it can actually be more natural if you're dropping a couple of frames. If you're doing it if the timing is right, and something moves faster than 60 FPS, it's gonna be.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't see every move it does if it moves fast. You just see it where it should be in 60 frames per second.
Yeah, but sometimes
when you drop frames, you don't.
Sometimes the mathematical correct position is not the natural position. It's like when you're designing, if you're drawing a circle on a screen, if it's a perfect circle, people will think it's a little bit squarish, actually, or it's not. It's more like a diamond. A mathematically perfect circle drawn on a computer screen will be perceived as a slightly diamond shaped. It's true.
If it's 1 pixel big.
No, but if you look at any font, for example, which has a. Like if you look
when you talk, I think about circles in vector graphic programs, and they do not look like squares to me, or diamonds either. They look like circles, and they are round. So I'm not buying it.
Okay, I'm gonna prove it to you.
Yes.
This has been another episode of Distancify Weekly. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell button, comment, thumbs up, whatever. We are also available on Spotify, iTunes at some point, and wherever you get your podcast. See you in 1 week. Bye.